Today, we're going to review the pre-op and post-op communication workflow. The first thing to notice is that on each chart schedule, you will see a telephone icon. Telephone icon indicates a call needs to be made. Once the call is made, the telephone icon will disappear. Today, we're going to perform a pre-op communication workflow phone call to Rosie Ayer. To access the pre-op communication workflow, you must open the chart. Simply tap on the chart with your finger on a tablet or with your cursor. The chart opens to the current visit summary screen. As is true for all HST workflows, they are listed in the hamburger menu in the upper left header. The pre-op communication workflow is designed so that the caregiver can complete all of their required documentation in this single workflow. The first block you will come on is the communication logs. The purpose of this block is to record how many attempts were made and if the communication phone call was completed for this patient. The typical grid block, which you see many of throughout the eChart program. The first thing you'll notice is the patient's primary language. This primary language, by default, is set up in the eChart admin home screen under center configuration. If you do not set a default, the language in this field can populate automatically from HSTPN in the patient language section. So let's go ahead and record a phone call we make to the patient. You will tap the plus. It will say the time. It will default to today's time and today's date. You'll notice the time is in red and the date is in red. That is because the case is scheduled for tomorrow. It is telling you that the date you're making this phone call is not the day of surgery, which is great. We usually make these calls the day before, but at least the day before. The performed by is your typical me button. When you tap it, you automatically enter the name of the logged in user. If someone else is making a phone call, you can easily search for their name by just typing in a few letters. It will bring up either the first or last name of the person you are wanting. But we're going to go ahead and say that I made a phone call. Now, the status of this call, you have a few possible answers. No answer. You left a message. You partially completed the call, but the patient had to call you back later, or you needed to call them. The call is completed, or you spoke to this person preoperatively in person. You also have an option to select whether you spoke with the patient or with a significant other, legal guardian, mother, father, that type of situation. And you can certainly select that and type in who it was that you spoke with. It defaults to patient. It also defaults to spoke with the patient in the primary language. If you did not speak to this patient in their primary language because it is other than the language that you speak, you can say no, and you can put in your notes that this patient needs an interpreter. But we're going to say that this call is completed. Then save and exit. Each attempt at a phone call will establish a number in this field. This fills out automatically for you. So if you are required by your surgery center to attempt to reach the patient, let's just say 3 times, this is what will total that for you. If at the end of 3 times you are unable to contact the patient or you are unable to complete the call, you can check this checkbox. Checking this checkbox will lead to any incompleted blocks below the communication log will delete by the system overnight. Any completed blocks will remain in this workflow. That is so that your workflow can achieve 100%, even if you were unable to complete that call because you needed to have it 100% complete so you could close this chart. If you have a late add-on and you're gathering some information from the patient who's returning to your center in a couple of hours, you can say NA to the pre-op phone call and just secure the rest of the data. Or if you so choose, you can remove the pre-op call workflow from your chart. The next block we're going to look at is the patient information detail. There are a few new features to this block. The patient's preferred name. If Rosie prefers to be called Rose, and you enter that information will appear at all times in the I button in the chart header. And it will tell you her preferred. You can also select the gender identity. This is a new field, and it pulls from a code table designed to work both in SVN and in HST chart. In this case, Rosie is going to identify as female. Her gender identification is again located in the chart header for ease of use. You can enter any information in this block, and it would automatically update practice management. And you don't have to go back and forth between the two to make sure that the information is changed. And it changes in real time. So if I added an email for this patient, the system would make sure it is a valid email, and it would also populate the email field in practice. If the patient does not want to provide an email, then you say no or refuse to disclose. This checkbox also populates our HST practice. In this area, you would enter the main phone, the cell phone, the work phone, and any other phone number that is important to the patient. You can select it as a primary, and you can format that phone number so that it populates in the exact way that your center likes to see them. You can also add a note here that says that it is the husband cell as well. Any information that might be important to somebody who's trying to reach out for this patient. You can check their address, and you can update it as necessary when you're completing this block. The next block we're coming on is allergy. Allergy is a block that you'll see repeatedly throughout many workflows in HST chart. In any workflow that this block appears, it must be reviewed. Even if there are no allergies, we give the opportunity for other users to review that they are aware there are no allergies. To enter a patient's allergy, again, you tap the plus. You put in the first few letters of the allergy that you're wanting to enter, and you see you have penicillin. You can create some shortcut allergy names, and that will be shown to you during the implementation process. If you have something that's an allergy that you cannot learn, you are still able to check a box and enter an additional allergy. The system, however, will not do a drug allergy check against allergies that are not found within the search of the gold standard data. You're asked to input the type of allergy, a true allergy, an intolerant, a sensitivity, or unknown. If the penicillin allergy happened to Rosie as a child, she may not know anything except that her mother told her she was allergic, in which case you can select unknown. Even when you select unknown for type and severity, the system will do a drug allergy check. So in this case, we're going to say it's an allergy. The reactions are listed in a code table that you design in practice management. We preload it with a handful of typical allergy reaction, which you can accept or not accept as you choose when you are setting up your chart. The severity of this rash, since it is a systemic rash, we're going to call it moderate. And if we wanted to put any notes here, we could do that as well and save it. Entering an allergy or entering NA will automatically complete the block. Every block in the workflow is tallied to include in the upper right corner of the header your chart, or in this case, workflow completion data. The number we're shooting for here is 100%. Home medication. In HST, if you have a registered prescribing provider, all of your ancillary users, including all of your nurse staff, can work under that provider's registration to obtain the patient's 6-month prescription history. However, before you can obtain that history, you must get the patient's permission to do so. Recording that permission here, it will stamp it with your name, the date, and the time that the patient gave you their permission to import from dose file their prescription history. Once you tap that, it will automatically load the patient medication history in this grid, and you can then review that with the patient, and it saves you from having to fight the video. But just for the sake of argument, we're going to go ahead and add one thing. When you tap on the plus and you begin your search for a medication, you are going to get several different options. I typed in LIP for Lipitor, and you can see, I can do a generic Lipitor entry if the patient doesn't know the tablet or dosage, or I can check a specific Lipitor dose. Let's go ahead and say the patient takes 10 milligrams. Their dose is 1 tablet, and it is daily. The last dose currently is today. If I tap on the calendar, it will bring in today's dose. If it doesn't matter when they took this Lipitor, you can leave this field blank. However, if this medication, let's say, were a medication that increases bleeding time, you may want to say when that patient stopped taking their aspirin or their NSAID. We're going to go ahead and save and exit. But if the patient had a long list you were entering, you could save and add new. It would save this entry, then it would bring up a blank one. Saves you a few clicks. This is how it will display in the grid. It also automatically put in my name, the date, and timestamp because I don't have to review this. I made the initial entry. The next block you're going to see is called a questionnaire. Every center has the ability to design any type of questionnaire they choose, and we will give you the skills to help you do that. In many instances, there are specialty specific questions that you would like to ask your patient. In this case, it is a cataract patient. If you had a colonoscopy patient, you might have very different questions that you want to ask. This is just a sample. The information here, what is causing them to notice their decreased vision? We're going to say that they have trouble driving it. Health screening. Again, this is a questionnaire. You get to design that yourself, which is a good thing because as many times as the COVID pandemic changed the questions that we needed to ask, that is how many times you will be able to change the health screening should you decide to. Some of these questions have children questions, or they are called nested questions. If I say yes, it may ask me for more information. If I say no, those additional questions will disappear. You can make these questions required, or you can allow your user to just complete those that are pertinent to this patient and this procedure. Here's another example of a questionnaire where it's going to have nested questions. If you answer the previous surgery question, this is a question that also appeared in the anesthesia history block. The answer to this question will also appear in the anesthesia history question. The same is true for any of the questions that you design in your questionnaire, unless you specifically tell it otherwise. The answers to these questions will appear wherever the question appears. So even if this question were in a different questionnaire in the anesthesia workflow, the answer would still populate because you have answered this question once. One of the primary goals of HST chart is to decrease the duplication of documentation that's required by healthcare professionals. You will still have the opportunity to review the answer. You can even edit, change the answer, but you don't have to re-ask questions that have already been asked and redocument the answers every single time they appear. I'm going to say that this person had a colonoscopy 5 years ago. This answer will appear in the anesthesia workflow. This log, patient arrival time, you'll see the date is red. You'll want to change that date to tomorrow. And since this patient's surgery is at 8 a.m., we would like them to show up at 7 a.m. You can, if you want to, type the time directly into the field. If you're using a tablet or a mouse, you may want to just use the drop down instead of the key. But again, completely up to you. Who gave this patient that arrival time? If your physician office tells the patients when to arrive, you can check physician office and then you can put in the name of that staff member. However, if it is you that did it and you tap staff, it will automatically populate your name as you are the logged in. Pre-op instruction. This block allows you to create your pre-op instructions specific to this type of surgery and make sure that the information is checked and given to that patient. Once you've completed this workflow, and you can tell by the 100% in the upper right corner, you can go back to the HST schedule by tapping the eChart full button at the top of the header, or you can tap the HST logo. It will bring you back to your previous page, which for us was the schedule, and you'll notice the telephone is now gone. So at a glance, anyone can tell if all of tomorrow's pre-op calls have been made by simply looking at the schedule. Let's go ahead and review post-op communication. Post-op communication is very similar in its design and layout to pre-op communication. So let's go to a case from yesterday. And you'll see for this patient, they have a phone icon. That means their post-op phone call has not been made. Again, we open the chart. We go to the hamburger menu. And we go down to the post-op communication workflow. As you can see, the first block in this workflow is also the communication log. However, in this instance, it will be logging in the attempts at the post-op phone call. So it does not have the data in it from the previous pre-op communication work. Let's just say that we tried to reach that patient and we left a message and we were not able to complete it. You'll see the one. Say we went back later and tried again. And this time, we were also not able to reach the patient, but we left a message. Now you see we have a two. If we are only required at your surgery center to attempt twice, you can check that you are unable to contact the patient and move on. If you are able to leave information in their messaging, you may still want to complete some of the other blocks in this workflow. But let's go ahead and say for us, the third time was the charm, and we are able to complete the call with the patient. I do not have to interact with the patient information block. It is just there so I know which phone number to call. My post-op call questionnaire is going to have questions that apply particularly to this type of surgery. In this case, a knee surgery. You will complete these answers, and then your post-op communication workflow is complete. If you wanted to put the post-op discharge instructions for this patient that they signed off on in yesterday when they had the surgery, you could indeed have that block in here in case you needed to review the discharge instructions with this patient. This concludes the HST eChart demo of pre and post-op communication workflows. Thank you for your attention.